patch 12.0.5 dropped on April 21st. Housing got disabled on day 1. Bosses were broken. Players couldn't log in. Blizzard issued a formal apology within days. And the question everyone is asking is the same one that has been building for a couple of years now. Is Blizzard releasing patches too fast? So welcome back to my channel. I've been playing WoW for a very long time, and I've lived through many patch cycles this game has ever had. The good ones, the bad ones, and the infamous ones. And right now, something feels very off. Not with the game itself. I mean, Midnight is genuinely, I think, a strong expansion, but with the pace at which Blizzard is pushing content out the door. Today, I want to take a brief look at the history of WoW's patch cadence, compare it to where we are now, and look at what the community is actually saying, and also giving my honest take on whether speed is killing quality. So let's start with some context, because I think a lot of players don't realize just how different the pace of WoW used to be. In Vanilla and the Burning Crusade, patches were rare events. Major content patches could be months apart, sometimes longer. When a new raid tier dropped, you were expected to be in it for a long time. There was no rush to the next thing, because the next thing wasn't coming for any time soon. Wrath of the Lich King is often remembered as one of the best expansions, and part of that is because it had a steady, considerable patch cadence. The final patch of Wrath, patch 3.3, landed in December 2009. Cataclysm didn't launch until December 2010. That's a full year on the same patch, and yet most players don't remember that as drought. They remember it as the ICC era, one of the most iconic periods in WoW history. Mists of Pandaria is another good example. All of its major patches dropped within a single year, and is widely considered one of the best executed expansions in terms of content delivery. Then came Warlords of Draenor. And this is where the lesson lives. Warlords had two major patches. Patch 6.1, which was almost completely empty, and 6.2, Hellfire Citadel, dropped in June 2015 and then sat there for 392 days before the expansion ended. Nearly 13 months on the same content. Players left in massive numbers, and Blizzard stopped publishing subscriber numbers entirely. Then Shadowlands went the other direction. It had the longest wait for a first patch in WoW history, 218 days before patch 9.1 arrived, nearly twice the historical average, and that drought broke the expansion's momentum completely. The community was loud and clear back then. Content droughts are unacceptable, and Blizzard listened. So starting with Dragonflight, Blizzard committed to a new cadence, a major patch roughly every 8 weeks. And they've mostly delivered on that promise. Blizzard has been releasing content faster than ever before, sticking to an 8-week patch cadence since Dragonflight launched in 2022. Midnight launched in March 2026. Patch 12.0.5 arrived 7 weeks later. 1 week ahead of the established schedule. 7 weeks. And the result? Housing was disabled on launch day. Boss mechanics were broken in the final raid. Server disconnects, login issues, visible file names and development artifacts left in the game, typos in quest texts, and this wasn't the first time. Patch 11.1.5 in May of 2025 was notoriously buggy and poorly received, which prompted a similar apology from Blizzard when they promised to do better. So now the community. I want to show you what the WoW community is actually saying right now, because I think it matters. On Reddit there's a post that went massively viral this week. I'll put the link in the description. The title alone says everything you need to know. Dear Blizzard, Eon, it's time to reflect here. The post outlined a long list of issues with the new patch and stated that the community's goodwill is not infinite, but it's real and that Blizzard is spending it recklessly. The comments on that post are actually telling. Player after player is saying the same thing. And over on the official Blizzard forums, another thread has been gaining traction with the same message. Players are not asking for content droughts, They're asking for patches that work on day one. So why is this happening? This isn't just about one bad patch, it's about a structural problem. Blizzard was affected by several rounds of layoffs by Microsoft over the last couple of years, while simultaneously speeding up WoW's release cadence. Expansions now last a year and a half rather than the 2 or more years they used to. So think about that for a second. Fewer people, faster output, more ambitious content. Something has to give, and increasingly, that something is quality assurance. So patch 12.0.5 went through a public test realm before launch. Players actually flagged issues. It's clear something about the process is in serious need of an overhaul. Bugs that were reported during PTR still made it to the live servers. That's not a testing problem, that's a prioritization problem. Issues with the patch cadence seems to be compounding and multiplying. What looks good for player retention on paper is creating quality problems that are now affecting even casual players who would normally never notice. So the real question is, what do players actually want? Here's the tension at the heart of this debate. Players hated the droughts. They screamed at Blizzard for leaving them on the same content for over a year. They cancelled subscriptions, they wrote essays. So Blizzard sped up. And now players are screaming that patches are broken and rushed. So what do players actually want? The answer from the community is actually very consistent right now. Players seem to agree that a steady stream of updates is overall a good thing for the game's health and a welcome change from how Blizzard handled things before Dragonflight, when 6 months could easily go by with no content. But they want those patches to work. 10 weeks instead of 8, 12 if that's what it takes, more time on the PTR, fix the things players flag before shipping. Nobody is asking for Warlords patch 6.2 to last 13 months again. They're asking for housing to be available when the housing patch launches. So I've been playing this game for a long time and I've lived through multiple versions of this debate. The panic when content wasn't coming fast enough, the frustration when patches launched broken, the exhaustion of waiting 218 days for Shadowlands patch 9.1 while the expansion slowly lost its momentum. I know what a content drought does to a game, I felt it firsthand. But I also remember what it felt like when a patch launched and everything worked, when you logged in on patch day excited, not bracing for what would be broken. That feeling has been harder to find lately. Blizzard made the right call by committing to a faster cadence, but 7 weeks between an expansion launch and the first major patch, while simultaneously dealing with reduced headcount, was a bit too aggressive. The solution isn't to go back to the Shadowlands space, nobody wants to wait 200 plus days again. The solution is to take the 8 weeks seriously. Use the PTR properly, fix the things players flag. Don't ship a patch you know has broken housing because the calendar says it's time. Blizzard said they will do better. They said the exact same thing after patch 11.1.5. I want to believe them, I really do, but after 20 years of playing this game, I've learned that words are easy. The next patch will tell us everything. So that's it. Patch 12.0.5 is mostly fixed by now. The housing is back, the bosses work, and the content itself, when it functions, is fun. But the pattern is what worries me, and based on what I'm seeing in the community right now, I'm clearly not alone. Let me know in the comments, do you think Blizzard is moving too fast? Or do you prefer faster patches even if they're a bit rough at launch? So I'll link all the community threads and sources I mentioned in the description below. Subscribe if you want to see more midnight content, and I'll see you out there.